Well, you've had a very busy day here in Atlanta, book signing at Barnes & Noble, and I wanted to thank you for spending a few minutes with us tonight at our Rivers of the World event. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much, John. I'm delighted to be with you here.
Writing a book is a major undertaking, having tried it myself. What prompted you to write the book, and can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, John, the book itself chronicles my 36 and a half years in the Army. I just retired last summer, the summer of 2007. And during my time in the Army, I spent most of that time in special operations. I was a founding member of the Army's Delta Force. I have been a man of faith since I first came in the Army. I have been open about my faith. And in 2003, when I was serving in the Pentagon as the Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, the U.S. media went after me over my faith. I was criticized because I had spoken openly about my faith. Things that I had said were skewed in such a way that I was portrayed as a very radical evangelical crusader who believed that we had to go out and declare war on every Muslim. And while I was in uniform, I was unable to tell my side of the story, simply because I was still in the Army. And after I retired, I was determined that I would take this opportunity to write a book and tell my side of the story in hopes that people would read the book and then judge me based on hearing both sides.
This criticism, how did that all get started? Was it a politically motivated situation? Do you have any idea how that all got started?
Well, I was serving in Washington at the time in the Pentagon, and most things that occur in Washington are politically motivated. And yes, there's an element within our media as well as elements within our society that, as you are probably aware, have found it very convenient and appealing to be critical of Christians. I was in a high-profile position as the Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence. I was a convenient target to go after not only me as an individual, but also the Bush administration. And that's exactly what happened. They used me and my open faith to embarrass the Bush administration. And of course, there were a lot of elements in the media as well as in the Congress and throughout our society that called for my head, so to speak. It called for me to be fired. But I'm very glad to sit here before you this afternoon and tell you that the Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld, actually stood by me, and so I performed that job there for 4 years.
How did your fellow soldiers react to all of this?
Well, thanks. Within the military, I had very good support, to include the Army leadership. General Pete Schoonmaker and General Dick Cody, the Chief and the Vice Chief of Staff of the Army, both supported me. And I had good support from my peers. There would be the occasional email or comment from people who did not support me being open about my faith. But overwhelmingly, I was supported very well.
So the title, Never Surrender, is a testament to your continuing your faith despite all of the adversities that you were encountering.
Essentially, yes, John. That was a most humiliating and embarrassing period of my life when my family and I were ridiculed by not just the U.S. media, but by the world media. We were threatened by radical Islamic groups. We were vilified by, as I said earlier, the Congress, as well as some church groups in America who really did not know what I had said nor what I stood for. And throughout that episode, there were times when I simply wanted to quit. I simply wanted to say, I've had enough, I'm walking away from this. But each time, I felt down in my heart and down in my spirit and my soul that there was only one right answer, and that was never surrender.
most people in their lives have to, from time to time, make very difficult decisions. And could you tell us what role your faith played in difficult decisions that would, affect our country, the lives of many soldiers?
Yeah, John, making decisions is probably really not the issue as much as it is walking in faith. And I could tell you that in major decisions, I sought counsel, and that counsel was from my Creator. I went back to God and prayed for wisdom. But it's not just a simple matter of when you need to make a tough decision and going back to in prayer to God. It's a matter of walking in faith and knowing that in those times when you have to make very rapid decisions, that because you're walking in faith and trusting in God, that He is there, He will give you the wisdom and the guidance, even if you don't have the time or a situation in which you can pray as you would like to seek God's counsel.
The country is admittedly divided about our military involvement in Iraq, our battle against radical Islamic people. And for the average man on the street, it's a very complex subject. And we in America, the average citizen, we get our information from news organizations, sound bites, which is oftentimes filtered through political ideology or who's writing or producing the story. Could you be upfront and candid with us as a man, as a retired general, on what is going on? Do we need to do this? And if we don't do it, what could be the possibilities?
First of all, we need to recognize as a nation that we are facing what I believe is the most serious threat that we've faced since the American Revolution, where it was all or nothing. I believe that the threat today is more severe than when we were in a nuclear standoff with the Soviet Union. And part of the problem, John, is that we don't recognize the threat. We don't understand the threat. And the threat is right here among us. Radical Islam threatens our existence as a nation. Now, let me be very clear. Let me look at you and say, in the 36 and a half years that I served in the military, I supported the Constitution to include the First Amendment right of freedom of religion, and I believe that every Muslim in this country should be allowed to worship freely until they cross the line and they become a jihadist. A jihadist believes that it is their directive from Allah to destroy this nation, to kill infidels, and to bring us under the authority of Allah. That is what they are determined to do, and they've told us that. They tell us that in their writings. They tell us that in the speeches that they give in mosques and in other public places. They want to destroy us. We have to be subjected to Islam. Those people I will fight until my last breath. It is a serious threat. And what we need to do is we need to recognize that it can happen in America. And the fact is that it is happening in America, and we're watching it. And we're not doing a great deal about it. I'm very concerned, John, about this threat.
Is there any estimate on the number of jihadist or radical people within our boundaries?
The world Muslim population is between 1.5 and 1.6 billion. Estimates range as high as 15 to 18% of those are Islamic extremists, jihadists, who believe what I just talked about in terms of killing infidels and establishing an Islamic caliphate. Within our own boundaries, the estimates range as high as 7.2 million. I was in a conference last weekend in Albuquerque where a former terrorist was one of the keynote speakers, and his figures were 7.2 million Muslims in this country. If 15 to 18% of them are extremist, we have a lot of people inside our own country that want to destroy this nation.
Recognizing that there is probably some things that you could not share with us, but what is our government doing to monitor and protect us from these people?
I think that our government actually has done a pretty good job of protecting us from another attack. There are a number of incidents that have not been widely reported that were planned terrorist attacks that have been thwarted. So I think our government, particularly in the information and intelligence area, has done a pretty good job. And if we ever let up on our information and intelligence programs, I think that we're going to see another attack. In fact, I would say to you, John, we will see another attack. And I would say to you that they will be trying to use a weapon of mass destruction. It needs to be spectacular. But you know, that's not even the biggest danger. The biggest danger is what is happening right here in the U.S. in terms of our failure to recognize this growing threat and the seriousness of it. And if you look at madrasa schools right in places like right outside of our national capital, you will find that in their textbooks in madrasa schools, they teach children that Jews and Christians are pigs. They teach things that we would not find acceptable in our public schools, and I suspect that if we were teaching that same kind of thing in a Christian school, we would be taken to task over it. We're ignoring some very serious situations in our country.
What effect does political correctness that seems to thrive in this country have in the government's ability to do more to protect us?
John, political correctness is the bane of our existence right now, in my view. We are, because of political correctness, our politicians, those that we've elected to lead our communities and our country, are unwilling to stand up and be honest and open about the realities of the threat. There has been one congressman, in fact, he's from the congressional district that I am in Virginia, who made some very open and candid statements about the threat of Islam, and he was vilified by the media for doing so, because we still see this as an issue of freedom of religion. And the fact is, the majority of the Muslims see Islam as a religion, and that's fine. Let them worship as they choose. The problem is that jihadists don't see it as a religion. The jihadists see it as a way of life. It's a legal system, it's a religion, it's a social structure, it's an economic system, it's even a financial system. They don't identify with America or Britain or France or Germany. They identify with Islam. And under the concept of radical Islam, there is a caliphate that must be established in order for their Messiah or their Mahdi to return, and they identify with that caliphate, which is yet to be established.
I've often wondered why, if the radical element of Islam is statistically a minority, where are the rest of the law-abiding Muslims? Why are they not speaking out?
Yeah, they are intimidated, and I have asked the same question, as have others in this country. I recently saw a speech by Newt Gingrich, a rather impromptu speech that he gave at the National Press Club, and that's exactly what he says. Where's the outrage? And it's a good question. Where is the outrage? They're intimidated. They're afraid of these radicals. They live right in the same communities with them. They are afraid to speak out. There have been some very brave Muslims that have done just that. They've spoken out against these people. There have been others that have been very critical of the extremist, and even people like Theo van Gogh, who was killed in the Netherlands, that have come out against them, and people like Salman Rushdie, that has been very open and candid. They've been threatened. So the average Muslim on the street is intimidated by these threats and is unwilling to take the risk.
You had mentioned Denmark. Several weeks ago, I saw an interview of a man who heads an organization that is trying to protect and preserve the culture of Denmark, and which is under threat because of a large influx of Muslim population. And I see on the television news protesters with signs, vilifying our country. And what exactly is happening in Europe?
Europe is on a very rapid decline, John. And I would recommend to you and to everyone else a book by Mark Stein called America Alone. And Mark points out that the birth rate in Europe is only a little over 1.3. America's is 2.1. It takes a birth rate of 2.1 to sustain any society's population. At 1.3, there is no next generation in Europe. Now, the problem is Europe has a number of very large social programs like socialized medicine and a lot of welfare, a lot of early pensions, and that depends on the next generation to pay that bill. When they don't have a next generation, their only solution is to bring in immigrants. Most of the immigrants in Europe are coming out of the Middle East, Pakistan, and North Africa. They are all Muslim. Their birth rate is 5.6. By the middle of the century, Stein says that that continent will be an Islamic continent. Now, if the current trends hold, and only 15 to 18% of the European Muslims are radicals, and they are intimidating enough to do what they're doing today, which is cause the majority to stay silent, that is a very dangerous thing, and it portends great trouble for Europe in the future. I don't think Europe can recover.
Interesting. I'd like to switch gears here. You left being a general in the United States Army and became an ordained minister. That's a dramatic change in careers. Could you tell us what prompted you to do this, and tell us a little bit about your ministry?
My ministry is called Kingdom Warriors. I co-founded the ministry with a great pastor and orator and author named Stu Weber, who was a Green Beret in Vietnam. Kingdom Warriors is really focused on encouraging people within the Christian faith to become active, to use their faith to help our country, to help our communities, to help our nation as a whole, by praying for our leaders, by praying for our country in general, and by no longer being passive, but becoming very active in the political process, as well as in the governmental process here, and using all that we have as Christians to fight back against, again, what I think is a very serious threat. I'm not advocating people going home and grabbing their .30-06 and going out and looking for people to shoot. That's not the focus of the ministry. It's about using our tools as Christians to help take back this country. There's no inconsistency with my 36 and a half years in the Army and my being an ordained minister of the Christian faith and preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. We need to remember that this nation was founded, regardless of the revisionist history, we were founded on Judeo-Christian principles by predominantly Christians. Now, we're a multicultural nation today. We have many languages and many religions. And and I support that. However, having said that, I also believe that because God ordained this country to be what I think was a light to the entire world, I believe that He expected people of faith to defend it. The whole issue of thou shalt not kill is one that is misunderstood. The Hebrew says thou shalt not murder. And you remember that Jesus said to His disciples before He ascended, if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. He was not saying you'll build my kingdom with the sword, not at all. What He was saying was, in building my kingdom and following what I've commanded you to do, you will encounter physical battles, and you must be prepared to fight those physical battles.
Well, I want to thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with me, and appreciate you being involved here tonight in Atlanta at the Rivers of the World meeting.
Thank you, John, and I'm delighted to be here with you and with Ben Mathis and the Rivers of the World folks. It's a wonderful ministry. It's an important ministry. And it is what my ministry represents. It's people that are willing to go out and make a difference in the world. Thank you.